Welcome to the May 4th, 2017 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in pop culture. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost.
So, this is going to be a pretty great show here. We have about like 4 topics to talk about. I think it's going to be really neat. I think one of which is a limited run game,
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And it is a classic.
I guess you could call
bring
it
us
that.
into this, Lotus.
Yeah, well,
Infamous
okay.
classic.
Yeah, it's funny because it's only a classic because of its infamy. If you've ever heard of it, this is why. I am speaking of the Sega CD. It's been ported to other systems, but originally Sega CD game Night Trap. This is one of those games that would have died in obscurity because, you know, it's a Sega CD game. How many people had a Sega CD, and then how many people had this? The deal is, this was a really interesting game, and it was legitimately cool for its time because it's an FMV game.
Was it one of the first FMV games?
I don't know.
No.
But,
Okay.
No.
But, like,
The first FMV game, if you want to call it that, would be probably Dragon's Lair.
fair enough.
So
But
Dragon's
these
Lair
graphics
came
are
out
even
in-
better because it's real life.
Dragon's Lair came out, I think, in very early 80s. I think it was 82 or 83, back when the Laserdisc technology had first been founded.
Yeah.
So it came about around the same time as the CD. Probably the CD came after the Laserdisc, if I had to guess, because that's kind of what CD means. It means compact disc, whereas Laserdisc would be the big one.
Yeah, Laserdisc is basically a record, except it looks like a CD that's the size of a record you'd play in a record player.
Yeah. So the Night Trap is a digital pictures game. That's the company that made this game, and they also made Mad Dog McCree, in which you were talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of other FMV games. Pretty much all the famous FMV games other than Dragon's Lair were made by Digital Pictures. And all the ones you could think.
And this is kind of where I was going, because Night Trap is effectively an FMV game. I mean, you can complain about the controls, but when it's executed properly, it's basically an FMV game done right, where people are acting in a movie, but what happens to them depends on the player's input, which is crazy because it's one thing to program a video game to do this, but these people
had to act out every single scene.
Yeah, they had to act out bad scenarios. They had to act out like, oh, you screwed it up, player, and you know, stuff like that. And depending
it's like a choose your own adventure book, but a movie.
Kind of, but you have to have like proper reflexes to get certain things done, and if you don't, then characters die. If you do, they're saved. And the fact that this game existed, like the concept, was really cool. And as is typical, well, I don't know about typical, but as is stereotypical of Sega CD games of the era, this is one of those games that straight up yells at you for a poor performance, which is just fantastic. Or I should say more scolds you, but it's great. Like in Mad Dog McCree, the Undertaker's just like, you know, you need to have better reflexes than that, or you're gonna be dead. You know, and Night Trap, they're like, you were supposed to save them. What are you doing? And like, you know, this is when, you know, the actors had super attitude. You know, like a sewer shark. Like, I'm gonna call you dog meat until you prove yourself to be better. And you're just like, ugh, like, you know.
So the big
acting
problem with... Oh, go ahead.
You know, I was just gonna say, like, acting, like, like the Sega CD had a lot of stuff like that, with, like, overacting, you know, I'm an actor reading my lines, you know, that kind of delivery.
Yeah, it's very hammy.
Yeah.
I used to have these games when I was a kid. I actually owned a lot of them when I was growing up because my brother was the one that, like, used to buy the video games because at the time, he was like mowing lawns and things like that, and he could buy games, and he was really into the newest technology all the time. So we had a Sega CD and a 32X right when they came out. He bought Night Trap, and we also had Crisscross Make My Own Video.
I think Mr. Ryu might have that.
We also had the Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch one as well. Mark Wahlberg before his Oscar winning performance kind of days. When he was a rapper. So yeah, I mean, I had these as they were coming out, and the problem with these games, and most FMV games, is that they're insanely hard.
Yeah.
A lot of them have weird.
Night Trap is
weird timing.
Crazy. Well, Night Trap is over the top. Like, I've heard of the game, of course, but my first experience actually watching it played was on the Game Grumps channel. And, I know it's kind of like a stereotype, like, they're either really good at a game or really bad at it. But with Night Trap, they actually weren't messing around. One of them was playing the game, and the other was reading a game facts guide telling the player exactly what to do and exactly what time, and they still couldn't pull it off. And it
really?
wasn't even really their fault. That game is bullshit. Like, it's super hard. Like, you have to have like, if you're playing without a guide,
you get one chance to kill certain enemies.
It's like effectively
you need
like
to get every enemy to win. You need to, in order to beat the game, you need to get every single enemy, and some of them are ridiculously difficult with the timing in order to
not only that, but I should mention one of the game's greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses is that it basically pulls a 24, like the TV show, where not only is this a movie being acted out like Mad Dog McCree, there are lots of movies being acted out because certain characters are doing something in one room where others might be in another room, and a third room might be empty, and you can view any of those rooms at any time. So there's effectively 8 things happening or, not happening at any given time. But then what I'm saying is, you do get warnings when there's danger approaching a room, but sometimes by the time you see that, it's too late. So you have to be... So on one hand, you could see what's going on in all sorts of different ways that actually is great for replay value. But on the other hand, if you're trying to actually beat the game, you have to be flipping through rooms so goddamn fast unless you're using a guide. Like you basically can't see anything because you're seeing everything.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. You're like all of the events that are happening and like all the acting. You're not gonna watch any of that because you're flipping around trying to find these doofs sneaking around the house elsewhere in the house. So like there's like this these big set pieces where the actors will be like doing
singing
like a
the Night
dance
Trap theme.
Yeah, the Night Trap theme, but you can't watch any of it because you have to go kill vampires in other rooms while it's happening.
Yeah, vampires. Seriously, they're called augurs. They're like not vampires, but they're vampires.
Get the hell out of here. They're vampires with they're humans with blood-sucking guns that latch around people's necks.
Yeah.
Do they explain like who the player is?
Yes. And actually, I want to go into that real bad. Because here's the thing. This game, I mentioned it was infamous and got notoriety, but why would it? Basically for the wrong reasons. When people heard about this game and saw certain scenes like, the girl in the bathroom in her nightgown, not actually doing anything risque, but just kind of there, and there's some vampire guy at the door, it's like, uh-oh, she's going to be in danger. That scene got such controversy, even though, like, there's really kind of nothing to see. Look, but if you show a screenshot,
stuff that happens on this, happens like this is daytime TV level of violence. Well, it is nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. And but when you see a screenshot of a creepy guy at the door with the girls in the bathroom, it's like, oh my god, this game's not safe for kids or whatever. And this game got enough controversy that it was actually being discussed in the U.S. Senate, right along with games that were actually violent, like Doom and Mortal Kombat, and to I guess a slightly lesser extent, Lethal Enforcers, and then freaking Night Trap, the game you never even would have heard of if they hadn't talked about it on public TV. Like, it's a Sega CD game, and it's not even fantastic. Like, if you had bought it on your own, you'd be like, oh, it's pretty cool. The end, it doesn't have the lasting appeal of Mortal Kombat and Doom, but it got hit. It got blasted so hard. Like, this is one of the games that actually the discussion of it, along with its contemporaries, led to the creation of the ESRB. So if you look at the original box art, the red box with like the really good 80s movie poster looking like...
Yeah, that's the one I had.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
Like the painting of the girl screaming, it looks like a movie poster. There's actually no ESRB rating on it. There's like a little message that says, oh, you might want to, not play this in front of children or whatever, but there's no official ESRB rating because it didn't exist. When the game was re-released for the Sega CD, and then it got a Sega CD 32X version, and it was on the 3DO and PC and Mac, then it had actual rated M for mature ESRB ratings. But this game simultaneously does and does not have an ESRB rating, depending which version you have. But regarding Pyro's question, who are you? It's goofy. You are, like, this is early 90s, so, like, this is when they were forcing acronyms because they wanted to get the word, So you worked for SCAT, which is the Sega... yeah, real mature. The Sega Control Attack Team. It was changed to Special Control Attack Team later because, it was no longer a Sega CD exclusive.
It's actually the opposite. I'll get into that.
Well, no, I know it was originally conceptualized for something other than the Sega CD, but wasn't the first release on the Sega CD?
Technically, but the original scenes...
Yeah, no, that is
filmed.
true. The original scenes were Special Attack Force, but the first we ever actually saw was on the Sega CD. So I guess it was simultaneously first and not on the Sega CD, which is kind of bizarre. So in any case, you are the Sega Control Attack Team or the Special Control Attack Team, whatever. But so basically, you are actually the guy behind the camera. Now, what's happening is these girls are being attacked in this house by these stupid B-movie looking, dudes dressed up in black suits going like freaking Power Ranger putties just going through the house. And your job is you have these 8 cameras set up. So yes, the fact that you could see across all the rooms is canon. And your job is to protect the girls when they're about to be attacked by activating a trap in that particular room. And it's usually some stupid Home Alone trap, like the floor will drop down and into like a smoky pit, or like they fall down a slide, like down a thing of stairs,
it's fling them over the roof or something like that.
Yeah, that was a brutal one. But they're basically like tamer than Home Alone traps, because Home Alone got nasty, but these are like tamer than Home Alone. It's just like, oh, you got him, and if you fail, then the girl basically just gets grabbed and pulled away somewhere, and it's like, you fool, like you messed it up. So that's your job, and basically that's the game. And the reason I want to bring up Night Trap for the topical podcast, the Reactive Consciousness, is what Vice said in the very beginning. There's a company called Limited Run Games, and what these guys do is they take games that were released in the States, usually digitally only, and they give them physical versions for those people who want physical copies. And we've talked about them before. When we were mentioning the Silver Case, when we got the PC release of Silver Case, we gave this whole song and dance about Limited Run and how it's really cool to have physical copies of stuff, and sometimes the swag is really cool. Sometimes there's no swag, but hey, you got a physical copy of the game. Night Trap, of course, was only released physically because we didn't have digital media, like digital-only media at that point. There was no real proper working internet. But just out of nowhere, they're re-releasing Night Trap in freaking 2017. Night Trap, for the record, came out in 92. So Limited Run Games is re-releasing it in higher quality. There have already been higher quality releases because the Sega CD's resolution for Night Trap was pretty garbage. Like that, it was compressed video. So like if you had the PC version, it was better. Even the Sega CD 32X version, I think, looked better. But now we might have an even better thing because this was originally captured from VHS footage, and new VHS footage looks pretty damn good. So like, hopefully, this ends up looking good. And Limited Run Games, here's the part that I like most about it. They're releasing 3 different, I'm not going to say versions of the game, but they have 3 different box arts, and you can buy the one you like. Or if you're a super fan, you can buy all 3. Yeah, here's the part that I like. So they're actually releasing the original red box art with the painting of the girl going like, and then they're releasing the Sega CD, the later Sega CD and Sega 32X art with the actual photograph of the main actress, kind of giving this like accusatory look at the camera, like you gotta, do your job. And what I find kind of cool is that the Sega CD version has like the blue spine, and the Sega 32X version is like the red and yellow spine.
Nice.
Like, yeah, they're keeping the box art authentic. Here's the part I find most entertaining, though. I didn't even know you were allowed to do this, honestly. But the ESRB is not on the box art, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh.
Honestly, I kind of would have liked it if the ESRB rating were not on the original version, but was put back on the later versions. But it's still a cute little Easter egg, so I thought that was pretty entertaining. So for all those people who were not able to get Night Trap because you don't give nearly enough of a damn, or they're just for consoles you don't have, even the PC version, I don't know if it'll work on modern rigs easily. So like Night Trap is basically inaccessible unless you have an old obscure console. Until now, now you can play it on the PS4. Whoa. And the Xbox One.
I wonder if the reason why they don't have to have the ESRB is because, at least from my knowledge of this, they only sell it on their site. Yeah. So because it's not going to be in stores, right. They don't need to show. They don't need to show what the rating is.
There's no law stating that ESRB needs to do anything. It's all a voluntary system, kind of like the MPAA is.
I didn't even know that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a voluntary system to avoid government interaction.
Okay.
So that the ESRB was formed just kind of like the Comics Code Authority was formed, and the MPAA was formed in order to self-police rather than allow the government to come up with a system and screw everything up, essentially. So, like, as a result, like over in Europe, they have or in England, they have the PEGI system, which is government sponsored, and nobody likes that. Like, nobody wants the government telling people what they can and cannot enjoy.
Yeah.
So therefore, since it's self-policed, it very rarely gets brought up to the government that, hey, you guys need to look into this to protect people, because they're already protecting us by giving them ratings.
Oh, by the way, speaking of which, because I'm looking at Wikipedia to get some of the information that I'm bringing up, but it says that due to the controversy over Night Trap, over the game, Night Trap only sold an initial print run, but was still considered financially successful. But amusingly enough, despite what you just said about Peggy, it became a bestseller in the UK.
Yep,
that's just kind of amusing.
What I was going to say about this earlier is the big problem with FMV games, most FMV games in general, is they're not fun to play because they are essentially, they're a movie that plays that has trigger points, right? Yeah. That make something happen. So therefore, a lot of times the action's unintuitive. You can feel like you have very little influence over what's happening, or know exactly what to do when prompted. So, therefore, this is just one of those games that isn't that much fun because, like, it is so difficult. First of all, it's a difficult game, and there's so much going on, and you can never enjoy it because you have to keep up with the pace of the game. And it's just unrelenting. You have to play this game 2 hours, constantly hitting things at the right time with no breaks, and you can't mess up at all.
I mean, it's kind of like how, not that Dragon's Lair wasn't fun, it was fun, but the same thing where if you're not paying attention and you're not very particular about what spots you hit at what time, like you're not going to have as much fun. And it's one of those things I feel with this is I'm not a huge fan of QuickTime events. And these games took...
Yeah, that's what they
invented
are. They're before QuickTime events, but they took QuickTime events to the next level where they don't even show you what you're supposed to be hitting at what time. You have to figure it out yourself. Which...
Yeah, Dragon's Lair later releases had parts of the stage flash, so you knew that something was coming. But the original release was nothing. By the way, regarding what you were saying about Dragon's Lair, at least with that game, if you died, you would restart from that point, even though you'd have to put in a quarter. Night Trap, though, if one of the enemies gets away, or more extreme, if one of the girls gets captured, you're done. Like that, you can't go back. Like, you're done. Start the game over. Like, it's brutal.
And I actually really like Don Bluth animation. I think you guys brought it up last episode with Anastasia. So I'm a big fan of Don Bluth animation, and Dragon's Lair, of course, is a Don Bluth production, and I've watched. I got the Blu-ray of Dragon's Lair, and even though I don't like to play the game, I love watching it because I'm a big animation dork, and so there's a long play version of the game in there where you can just watch the game, and you can watch every bit of animation they produced for the game, including all the a death reel at the end, which is pretty fun.
And I would love that for Night Trap, because even if you actively go for it, it's extremely difficult to see. Well, actually, it's straight up impossible to see an entire reel of film, because even if you just sit on it, something's gonna happen elsewhere. Like I would love to see just a compilation of all the raw footage, because they have it to make the game. I would love that.
I'd be very surprised if the new version didn't have that, because that's like the standard with old FMV games being re-released, is that they have those modes.
Actually, you know what I'm curious about, though? I wonder if they're going to do this for the new release. I know the PC release actually came with the U.S. Senate featurette, like about the game
I'm
itself.
sure it'll be there.
Yeah, that would
if they can get the
cool.
rights.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to mention that there are a couple games that do FMV style stuff well. One of them is Dragon's Lair 2. Even though it's a very difficult game, they learned their lessons with Dragon's Lair and Space Ace before Dragon's Lair 2. So they found out that the games were more fun when they were intuitive. Go think.
Yeah.
So like when you should have a natural response to press left, right, up, or down, or the action button.
Yeah, like in the Renovation Studios games.
Exactly. So they found that if you can easily determine what you need to do even before the flashing happens, then it's a lot more fun, because it feels like you're actually controlling the game. So therefore, a game like Road Avenger or Road Blaster is probably the best FMV game ever made.
Yeah,
and
left,
a lot of
right,
people say
brake, accelerate, and you have a pretty good idea of what to do any of the times you need to.
And not only that, but you feel like you're actually driving that car to some extent, because it's also happening rapid fire, but it's also super intuitive. You know what's going to be, what needs to happen.
And that's the thing. Some of that stuff comes up way too quickly, but even if you do die, you know why. Like I'll get it right next time.
Yeah. So I did also want to go over a super quick history of what Night Trap is. So a lot of those FMV games that were released for the 3DO and the Sega CD by Digital Pictures actually had you might wonder why so many got released in such a short amount of time, because the Sega CD wasn't around all that long. So they didn't produce those for the Sega CD. They actually made them all for a failed attempt at a VHS video game system.
Yeah, what was it, like Hasbro?
Probably. So probably Mattel or Hasbro or whatever. And it was supposed to be a video game system where you had special VHS tapes, and you would put them in there, and it would switch to different tracks, kind of like an 8-track would. It would switch to different lines of magnetic tape on each tape. And you would hit buttons to move the head on these things.
And yes, it was Hasbro, by the way.
Yeah. So I mean, what they did was they had all this footage. So they had a much younger Dana Plato from when the games were actually released.
Yeah.
Appear in this is like you're playing Night Trap and you're wondering why she looks so young, because it's 4 years after the fact. Night Trap and all of those games pretty much were made not for the Sega CD but popularized by it. So I did want to bring that up. I mean, I love this kind of kitschy stuff. I mean, FMV's kind of gotten a resurgence.
Yeah.
And there's some good FMV stuff out there, like
Contradiction.
Lotus and I played it. I was just gonna say we played that game, and that game's fantastic.
Dude, that acting is either amazing or like goofy but really entertaining. Like there's no straight up poor acting. It's either fun or it's legitimately awesome, like one of the two. It's great.
Yeah, I can't wait for the sequel for that one to come out.
Oh, I freaking wish. Yeah, I want to see more of the bad guy's father, because that guy freaking killed the entire time.
Contradiction was so much fun. I love that game.
That guy's delivery was the most condescending thing. Like, you could always go back into the kitchen and check. And it's just like pushes that case out. You're like, oh man, that guy was just dripping with ooze, and like, but you couldn't pin anything on him. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, so good. I love that game. So like I feel like we've kind of mastered what makes FMV good, and like there's also a couple games that like add it for cheesy effect. Like there's this game called Roundabout that is like FMV the game, like while goofy shit is happening. Well, so good.
And there's the tutorials, of course, which we mentioned for 1-2 Switch.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
So I think we know that whenever the case, it needs to be cheesy as hell on purpose, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah, like again, if
and
you
not
haven't,
intrusive.
Yeah, like again, if you haven't really seen old Sega CD games, just look up any of the cutscenes from Sewer Shark or like the game over screens from Mad Dog McCree or Night Trap. It's so funny to see a game like. Never have I seen a game just like condescend to the player for losing it, especially when it's a hard game too. It's just like, dude, are you even trying here? It's like, wow, man, all right, like leave me alone. I'm trying to get good at an extremely freaking hard game. Cut me some slack. Like Vice said though, it is like Vice said, and I think in Corrective Consciousness, it is fun when the game makes fun of you for losing. Like I'd mentioned in Mad Dog McCree when the Undertaker has you like in a grave and he goes, you let us all down, now we're letting you down. And it's like, oh damn, it's freaking hilarious.
Now do you guys have anything else to say about this, because I have a really good segue here?
No,
can't wait to play Double Switch 2.
Which is the unofficial sequel with Corey Haim.
Was Corey Haim the guy in The Lost Boys, or was that Corey Feldman?
He was one of the Coreys. Yes.
Okay.
One of the Coreys, not the more famous Corey. He's the less famous Corey.
Aw.
Corey Feldman's the more famous Corey, of course.
Sure.
Who just had his 5 minutes of fame again on the Today Show. But anyway, I did want to take this time to talk about limited run games.
Yeah.
So I love the concept that they have going on there, but I'm going to let out some criticism here, in that I think they didn't anticipate being as popular as they are.
Yeah.
You thought that they should have been just a limited run.
Well, yeah, their whole gimmick is that like we only have 2,000 copies of this or 6,000 copies of this. So like it's come to the point now where when they release something, if it's one of the more popular games, like not like there are some games like Dear Esther, which has its audience, but I get the feeling something like,
it's a small audience.
Yeah, like Octodad or The Silver Case, or even just for the cult following Night Trap, like you'd better be on the refresh key like when they launch those games, or else. So
this is my criticism. So I am a big shmup fan. You guys and our audience knows this. I love classic shmups. And Darius was getting a release. The Chronicle Savior was getting a release on PS4. And normally I wouldn't care because I have the PC version, which is superior. It can do dual monitor mode, just like the arcade version can, because it has like a really wide aspect ratio. So if I ever wanted to do that with two monitors, I could, and I have all the DLC for that. So I didn't really care that much about getting a physical release, because I'm more concerned about getting the best version. I'd much rather have the best version. But they were also releasing a limited edition which has all kinds of like history and art and fanfare.
Soundtrack CD, a couple little figures, like a cool box.
Yeah, and they also released a vinyl as well I believe the original Darius game. And Zuntata make, which is their house band, which I mentioned during the Falcom episode. They make awesome music for these Darius games. They're all unique and weird, but great. So I wanted to get both. I wanted to get the limited edition of the game and the vinyl. And now I'm getting into collecting vinyls. They sold out in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah,
both times. And people were complaining that even when they had them in their cart and then went to go check out, it got snatched out of.
So they don't even have like a reserve function. So
the big problem, they tell you when these are going to go on sale, so everybody is on there like trying to snatch them up.
Yeah.
So there was I'm at work first of all during all of these, so I go on there like 5 minutes after when I can get a bathroom break, and everything's already gone. Everything's already gone, and this is not good because now people will be scalping these things.
And they do. I've checked eBay just for curiosity. You could find almost any limited run game you want, but they're all like, well, they're freaking scalps. I was going to say they're more expensive than they would be, but that's what scalping is.
So here is my suggestion to them. I know they're probably not going to be listening to our podcast. I think that their current model is not good for their current base. Maybe it was good when they first started, but now that people know about them and also know that there's a demand for their things, this is not good. And it's going to make a lot of people very mad. I was pretty mad that I didn't even have a shot at these things. And I pretty much, until I know that they're going to improve it, I'm not even going to try to get any of their games. It pissed me off. Like, you shouldn't sell out like that. And it's also bad business because you are not selling. You should work to be efficient. You should be selling it to whoever wants it so you can make money, right? Make the most amount of money. And having a limited product does have its appeal. That's part of it. I understand that. So having the scarcity there is something that is integral to the selling point of the product. I understand that. However, you're going to have people not want it anymore because they don't even have a shot at it. It's kind of like with PAX. I don't even want to go.
I was going to say
anymore.
It's just like PAX because I don't want to go anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anymore because it's such a pain in the ass to try to go.
2 years, yeah, I mean, we've had this rant before, but like the previous 2 years, there was just no chance at even getting tickets. They were gone so fast, and this past time, I actually was able to get into the reserve list, so I could guarantee some tickets. But all of a sudden, they changed their passes to there's no more weekend pass. You have to buy 3 individual day passes. I'm not spending a fucking $150 for not the hotel, like just the con. Like, no way. Like, no, I'm done.
So here's my suggestion for what they're trying to do. What they should be doing is they should be opening up a pre-order list for a certain amount of time, like a week or a couple days, depending on how big they want their run to be.
Yeah, and match the people who like.
And they should print that many of the game, right? And that way, everybody who took the initiative during those couple days to order it was able to order it, and then that's that, and maybe have some extras, but give people the opportunity to order it during a certain time span, and then print them. Those people get them, and then people that were Johnny come lately, they kind of have to eat crow on that one because then they weren't paying attention. Not they didn't have a shot at it. They had a shot at it. They just weren't paying attention. Or and that also gives the market what it needs. These people can hold on to these or sell them later, but at least they were able to. You had the shot at getting it at the normal price, right? I think that this is a great way to do it because it'll still be a limited product. People can still miss out on it, which is part of it being a limited product. but it's more fair. People have jobs, people have lives. People can't, shouldn't have a product taken out of their cart. I mean, that's kind of like the whole point of
that's
having
ridiculous.
A cart, right?
Yeah, I did not know about that. Like, because especially with me, I don't have an account on their site, so whenever I go to buy something, I have to type in my address and everything for where it ships, and like, do I have to be like a master typist now to make sure that I get my order through on time?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's really shitty. I honestly think they have good intentions. Like, this company has like good intentions.
Well, no, they do. I mean,
they're
selling a product that you could already get anyway, just physically. Like, it's for the love of the game. Like, their intentions definitely are good.
But the model doesn't work for their current level of business. It just doesn't. They have to work on that. And I think if they made a concerted effort to change that instead of doing it the way they do, I would of course go in and purchase that. But as it stands right now, I don't ever have any hope of getting that vinyl. I wanted the vinyl more than anything, so I figured I would be able to get the vinyl more than easier than I would be able to get the game itself, because I would think that the game would have more of an audience than the vinyl would. But the vinyl sold out just as fast. So now I can never have that as part of my collection unless I want to pay like $100, and I'm not paying $100 for every vinyl. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, it's way too much.
I mean, $20-$25 is great. I don't even mind paying a little bit of a premium for something that I missed out on. For something that came out with a reasonable time and I just missed out on it. But I never even had a shot. It just stinks. So I just wanted to talk about that because we had a good segue, and that's what happened to me this week. Regarding that. And then speaking of things that were limited, I know you guys wanted to talk about the NES Classic and supposed SNES Classic as well.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about that because I thought the NES Classic was pretty cool. I never actually had an NES, and I know that the selection of games are pretty good, but I never actually wanted to buy it. But still, it's one of these things that I constantly want to give Nintendo the benefit of the doubt, but they seem to, for a company that started as a hardware company, they seem to not understand, like, production and supplies and demand.
I think they have other motives that nobody else is happy with. So I think they understand it, but they've also been burned on a lot of things before in the past. So therefore, like a lot of their cases of overproduction have really burned them in the past. So they had before the NES Classic, probably their biggest production woe was Amiibos at first, right? Mm-hmm. And then they came out with reprints, so that's good. They kind of made good on those, but they also have like an overproduction problem with some of the Amiibos. Like they're kind of tone deaf as to what people want. So they have a big problem with the Animal Crossing amiibos. They produced way, way, way too many of them. And
people aren't buying them?
And yeah, you can find the Animal Crossing amiibos for like bargain bin prices.
Oh, wow.
I'm not an Animal Crossing fan. I never was. But I got the one of KK Slider because I like the guy who he's based off of, the composer. The Nintendo composer. He made the Link's Awakening soundtrack. So I wanted the KK Slider amiibo, mm-hmm. right? And it came in a triple pack with 2 alpacas who I don't give a shit about. But there were all these other amiibos for... first of all, it was for it's like Animal Crossing amiibo party. First of all, it's an awful game. It's
That's what I heard.
You need to use the amiibo on it every single turn.
Oh, jeez.
It's an awful game. It's not fun to play. And they produced like one of every single character in the game, and like, first of all, they overproduce these. They ship these to every single store. It's a very niche.
That's the thing. I was going to say, you have to be a hardcore Animal Crossing fan to even know who these are, let alone care to buy their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you, not only that, but it's for a game that nobody likes. Not even the Animal Crossing fans like it.
Yeah.
So and you ship these to every single store in large quantities.
Yeah.
Like the same large quantities that you shipped Mario or Link. Like, what are you doing? Like, so they overproduced these, so they got burned on that. And so, like, but Nintendo should have known that. They should have known what kind of the quality of the product that they produced. You can kind of see the writing on the wall. You should produce accordingly. They should have made a limited run of these of these amiibos. Kind of like how I think they should produce every Pokemon as an amiibo. I think that would be really neat, because you could.
Would, but at the same time, that would pose a problem, because
it would be a huge problem.
There's how many Pokemon, and
Tons.
People don't like a lot of them, I would say.
Yeah. And
they probably wouldn't get bought. Like, I mean,
Well,
they kind of do that. They do have toys of the Pokemon, and I see them in toy shelves. I know, but I see them in toy shelves all the time still, because people don't buy them, because like they sell them in sets of 3 because someone's only going to want one of them in that set.
What they should do is they should produce a very limited amount of in waves, of these Pokemon and gauge whether people want them or not. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a demand for them, underproduce those. I that's what I would say, because you're producing so many of them, right? You don't want to make there a glut. Produce a lot of Pikachus. Like, there's already Pikachu amiibo, but and produce like a lot of Mewtwo's, because the Mewtwo is going to be popular. Mew's going to be popular. Charmander and Squirtle and Bulbasaur are going to be popular, and the rest of the starters. But do that, and then come out with limited ones, and make those collector pieces. Even, you know what I mean? But I don't know. It's just one of those things. But I think Nintendo has production hard time meeting production on a lot of their things ever since the Wii. The original release of the Wii, people were searching for that for 2 years after. So the NES Classic, the way I feel about it is that it was a long time coming, and it was they didn't produce enough of it. So what I mean by that is there should be no way that they aren't capitalizing on the market of people that are buying things like the Retron 5 and things like of that sort. Any kind of the you have Lotus an aftermarket clone, a really good one
of the AVS.
The AVS is a fantastic clone. It's a clone. But...
I will say this: the AVS, I would go with that over the Classic anyway. But the AVS is really esoteric, so there is that.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that market should be capitalized upon by Nintendo.
Sure, yeah.
It shouldn't be capitalized upon some guy who needs to come up with it, right? So they should have made this thing 5 years ago, when the plug-and-play systems were getting really popular, but they were trying to, to do this with the Virtual Console, right? But they forget that there are many levels of people... of interest in these things, in people that are hardcore about things.
Well, you know what? Not only the interest, but the Virtual Console is invisible unless you're on the Virtual Console. Physical stuff you could notice on the shelf and be like, oh. Or, they could have pictures of it, they could have pictures of it in, the store advertisements or something. Virtual Console, you have to choose to go to the Virtual Console.
Yeah, not only that, but it's cool to have as a physical good, right? The NES Classic is cool just to have as a monument to the original Nintendo. It physically is fun, right?
Yeah.
Because it looks like an original Nintendo console. So they did it right, but they made it in a very novelty item kind of way. The games that they put on it was really great. They also, in getting the third parties to cooperate, they did a really great job. The only game on that isn't on there that I really wish was, even though I'm not going to buy this thing, it's not for me, because I'm a guy who has an RGB modded AV Famicom with an EverDrive. I have the ultimate setup already, but if I was buying this thing, I would want Castlevania 3 on there, but it wasn't on there because of all the extra hardware. And it's an understandable omission, but they put everything else on there. You have Mega Man, you have Bubble Bobble, you have Super C. I don't know why they didn't put Contra on there. There must be some rights issue with Contra, because Contra didn't make it to the Virtual Console either, for whatever reason. But you have Castlevania 1 and 2, and Mario's 1 through 3, and both Zelda games.
Star Tropics and digital
Metroid.
Yeah, but regarding Star Tropics, that they have the instruction manual with like a
edit.
digital secret message reveal.
Yeah.
Because you can no longer dunk the thing in water.
And they did a really good job emulating the games this time around too. It's a lot better than what the Wii U did with NES games. It looks a lot better on that. And they also have the controller to go along with it, which everybody liked. I know why they stopped producing them. They probably want people to buy games on the Switch.
Well, I think it might be that, or they want to use the factories that are making that to make what could be the SNES Classic. Because I've heard rumors about it, and I forget what news outlet talked about it, but they're the same people who mentioned the NES Classic before it was official too, and have got a lot of these things right. So I'm really because the other thing is the SNES was my first game console. So even though I wasn't interested in the NES Classic, I find if they do make an SNES Classic, I might try harder to get that, because depending on the games on it, obviously, but there's tons of SNES games that if they have it, I totally love that.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame a lot of people for wanting that, and also an N64 one, because there's plenty of games that people want to revisit on the N64, right? So I think that these things would be great. They're not for me once again, but they are for the segment of their audience that doesn't have the patience to deal with technology like we do. Like we we'll go ahead and download obscure programs to play video games. We'll download like mods to existing games and futz with files in order to get certain things working, so we can enjoy them the way we want them. But there are a lot of other people that just kind of want an out of the box solution, and a cheap one at that. So the NES Classic is perfect for that. It is not for me, because I want an arcade or a hardware authentic experience with every game, right? And not just those 30 games. I want every game, every game that I can get my hands on, every game that I own to play on it. And all of my favorites, and all the ones that I think about all the time and write about and talk about. But there are people that just kind of want to plug it in and watch it go and don't need to update it or anything like that. And that is the segment of the audience that they have ignored. And there's a large segment of that audience. There's a very large segment of people that just kind of want to really experience Mario, just Mario, and only do it like once or twice per year. And and they're happy with that. They want that shot of nostalgia every once in a while, and forget about it. But like when their friend comes over and sees it, let's fire it up. It'll be fun. But Nintendo, I don't think quite realizes that they should be producing this all the time. That not everybody wants to buy a $300 new system and have to deal with the menus and keeping up with the releases of games and things like that. They don't want that. those people. We want that, and we're very happy with it. But we're enthusiasts. We're not mainstream.
Well, not to mention Nintendo tends to be like the fun company. Like, Sony and Microsoft are very much... I mean, Nintendo, of course, has its own kind of corporate attitude, but Sony and Microsoft seem more like...
Nintendo even makes menus fun. Sony
and Microsoft are businesses that happen to produce games, whereas Nintendo tries to put fun first. So, you'd think that they would be more about... I guess just the beautiful simplicity of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's very easy to get mad at them. I know what they're doing, but I think they are also making some bad business decisions here. They have an entire segment of the population they could be reaching that they're never going to get any other way, other than the way that they tried and were successful with. But they should continue to do so.
And by the way, there is one thing I should point out that's quite ironic. You were mentioning that the NES Classic is for, the people who just kind of want, a casual fun, let's play Mario or whatever. But the funny thing is, because the NES Classic was so limited, the people who got it tended to be the hardcore, gamers who looked us up in advance and were mashing that pre-order button. There wasn't the opportunity for the casual people to kind of walk by on the shelf and pick it up. They didn't have a chance at getting the thing that was best suited for them. The people who were more hardcore, snatched it up when ironically it was supposed to be just a laid back, look at Nintendo from the 80s experience.
Well, the thing is, you can count on nerds getting swept up in a craze that backs them up. You know what I mean? And not only that, but all the Star Wars fans are still part of the big group of people that wants to go see new Star Wars movies, even though it's extremely mainstream now. Mm-hmm. They also are getting swept up in the collector mentality of it. I mean, there's always a large segment of the nerd population that, the video game enthusiast, I shouldn't say nerd, but video game enthusiast population that wants to collect and have these cool monuments to nostalgia. I mean, like I said, the part of the fun of that product wasn't just its functionality. Its presence is fun. Its physicality is fun. Just having a replica Nintendo is a cool thing, and to have it, showing that off along with your figurines of your favorite characters and posters of your favorite movies it's the same kind of thing. It's the next best thing to having an actual Nintendo.
Yeah.
So I mean, why wouldn't they get swept up in it? But
no, I mean, of course they get swept up in it. But I'm saying the irony is that because they did, the people who are I remember playing Nintendo 20 years ago, they're not gonna
they didn't even have a shot.
Yeah, no way. You were not seeing this on store shelves. It was gone so fast.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, do you guys have anything else to say about that one?
No, I think that covered it for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I quickly wanted to mention one other thing, and this is not related to the last three things that we talked about that were interconnected. But I am a big fan of Fargo in general. I love the movie, and I love the TV show. And I love Coen Brothers movies in general, but they knocked it out of the park when they made this TV show. They made it defied all expectations in emulating what the movie is all about. It is very much a successor to the movie in every way, and the TV show is so high quality you wonder how they keep it up. It's so good. The first two seasons were great, and they are basically self-contained. They have some crossover between the two, but I think the first season takes place in 2006. Does that sound right? and the second season takes place in like 79, something like that.
Hmm.
So, the second season obviously only has vague references to characters that would have been, old enough in the second season to be alive in the first season, right?
Yeah.
So there are some things, but they're kind of self-contained. They're more only little references to characters that crossed over from season to season. Now I'm in the third season. Third season takes place in 2010. And it's great because it's a period piece about 2010, which you didn't think was could be a thing. But what's cool in it is everybody's fascinated with their smartphones.
Oh, nice.
Because they're brand new at the time, so everybody's really fascinated with what they can do with a smartphone and Facebook. And there are characters that still haven't made the conversion over to smartphones, and they have a lot less ability than the people that do have smartphones.
That's interesting.
So it's kind of like you a couple years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing perfectly well in my life, but all of a sudden we go to we go to some vacation together. I'm like, hey guys, could somebody bring up their GPS, or could somebody go to Twitter real quick and see what this person is doing? I'm just reliant on my friends at that point. So, what is immediately shocking about this really hadn't ever been brought up in the series before, is that the big bad in this, so far that's been revealed, I've only watched the first 2 episodes so far, and the third one would have been last night, but we are recording this ahead of time. Yeah.
So the big bad in this is technologically savvy.
Oh, no.
And is terrifying when it comes to computers. So I don't want to ruin anything, but if you have a computer and he knows about it, you're done. You need to get away. You don't even want to make him aware of you and your internet presence, because he can ruin your life. And so he's really, really scary and is kind of almost omnipotent because he has the ability.
Well, I'm assuming he can track people's IP addresses and then just show up at their house or something.
So I guess I can reveal a little bit here. So essentially, the big bad goes and threatens somebody, because he made a deal with them, and he is faulting them for not thinking that there were other components to the deal, because he's basically saying they're stupid for thinking that everything on paper was all that was owed for the deal that was made. You have to be an idiot if you thought that was it, right? Because who out of nowhere is just going to give you a whole bunch of money, for just a simple deal? So he's a bastard, because he's just basically going to keep you in his pocket for the rest of your life. And so he says, don't tell. He tells him their name, so that they they know who he is. Mm-hmm. And he says, if you mention my name or this interaction to anybody, you're going to receive consequences because of it.
Yeah.
The characters, don't go to the police or anything, but they go to their lawyer, and they say, dude, find out everything you can on this guy, So he does a Google search on him, and then basically because he does the Google search, his entire computer shut down because he put his name into it, right?
Ugh.
So he knew that somebody searched for him, and then he kills him.
Jeez.
He kills the lawyer, and he's like, you shouldn't have told anybody. I told you not to tell anybody, and he suffered because of it.
Brutal.
So I love the villains in Fargo. The villains are the worst type of villain. They're almost omnipotent and all powerful.
It is something I find very interesting, because I've only seen season 1 of Fargo, and I've seen the movie. But based on what you're saying about the villain in season 3, and based on what I know about the villain in season 1, as much as Fargo is incredible at capturing the attitude of the movie, it's interesting that you have proper scary villains because the Fargo movie kind of had that with the guy who didn't talk too much, but that movie was mostly... It was more of a
vast incompetence.
It was more of a dark comedy than anything else. And even the guy who was scary only really got scary at the very end. And you're like, oh, he actually delivers. Whereas in season one, based on what you're saying in season 3 of Fargo, and what I know of season 1 of Fargo, is like, these guys are monsters, just like from day one. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, so they're more like Sugar was in No Country for Old Men than anything.
Yeah, the villain of season 1 was straight up Anton Chigurh.
They are evil incarnate. The villains in the TV show are very much like a different Coen brother character from No Country for Old Men.
Funny thing is, even the analogs to the movie Fargo's villains in season 1, they were almost the comic relief bad guys of that show, but they were still properly competent. It's just that the actual bad guy was better, but like they knew what was up, whereas Steve Buscemi and the other guy like accidentally succeeded in everything they did.
Yeah. So this show, the third season, is still about people trying to commit crimes and royally fucking up.
Sure.
I mean, that is what Fargo is built on.
Yeah.
It's built on people that want to want a certain goal in mind, but realize that until too late that the consequences for their goals is way not worth it. Like the thing that they started is way, and what they do in order to try to get to their goal, and they're not good at it because they're not criminals.
Well,
they're just like normal people.
Well, that's another thing that I thought was interesting, is that like, because in Fargo the movie and in Fargo season 1, William H. Macy and who played Lester? Martin Sheen?
No. Lester Nygaard was played by Martin Freeman.
Other Martin. But from
The Hobbit.
That's right. Yeah, I was confusing the Martins. But yeah, William H. Macy and Martin Freeman, they were the guys who were like, I wanted to have this scheme. Like, oh no, man, it got too deep. But what I find interesting is that, again, like, even the bad guys, the duo in the Fargo movie, they were proper criminals, and they still couldn't get the job done, and like...
Well, they're people.
Yeah, but...
they make mistakes.
Yeah, but like, they almost exclusively made mistakes. Like, my favorite part was the beginning of the movie where they're just starting their plan. Because William H. Macy's like, this isn't a spoiler, this is like how the movie starts. William H. Macy's like, I want you to capture my wife and hold her hostage, and then like, I'll give you part of the money or whatever. The scene where they're going up in like bandit clothes to capture the wife, they're just standing in the back deck in front of this giant ass glass door, and she's just looking at them, and they're looking back at her, and that scene goes on for way too long before they finally break through the door, and the screaming is like, oh my god, and then it gets intense. But like, there's just this long period of like, are you actually gonna break in? Yeah, we are. Like, really?
Like, what are you doing here? Are you just looking in or what?
Yeah, and they're just staring back, and it's like, guys, like, is this your first kidnapping? Like, because
yes.
Oh, it was. Because I know
you gotta think these guys are hoods, but they're not like a mercenary, that does this kind of work all the time. They're willing to do it, and they're scum, but they're not like...
Yeah, because like when you first meet them in the bar...
They're not professional kidnappers.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you first meet them in the bar, they're talking like a bunch of badasses, and then when you see them act, it's like, oh, okay. Like, it was just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that part of the point is that these are all people. They're not like movie characters.
Yeah.
This is how kind of stuff happens. People flub and mess up and are scared themselves and don't know exactly how to react themselves.
What was also interesting though is how many variables would come into play that you wouldn't expect. Like, when William H. Macy is telling, his wife's father, like, oh, I'd better go ahead and make the deal because, that's my plan. Like, so I better go ahead and make the deal. It's the right thing for me to do. But like, his wife's father, like his father-in-law, just hates him, and he's like, no, fuck you, I'm going. And like, when he goes, like, there's just all this stuff that nobody, including the villains, expected because he wasn't supposed to be there.
Yep.
There's just I've said this before off the air, but that entire movie is just a comedy of errors. It's just like everything that happens despite everything instead of because of it. Whereas in the TV show, shit just goes down straight up.
You're gonna love this. There is a big reference that is very subtle in the third season to the rest of Fargo. So just like the first season had a very major subtle reference to the movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The third season, the two main characters are played by Ewan McGregor, and they're brothers. And they don't look or sound. They have different mannerisms, and they look very different. So you forget that it's played. He plays both of them.
Oh,
and they interact with each other a lot.
that's crazy.
So it's really, really awesome that you have two distinct characters that are interacting with each other. They're kind of on opposite sides. The two brothers hate each other pretty much. And the central conflict is between these two brothers, and what they're doing because of something that happened in the past. Of course, I haven't revealed it yet because it's early in the series. But what is really funny is one of the brothers is really successful, and the other one is a cop who's kind of a dirtbag and isn't very successful. He's kind of down and out. But the one that is successful is the owner of the parking lot in Fargo the movie.
Okay. That parking garage?
The parking garage. And also the parking garage and the first season of Fargo as well.
That's right, they did go there, yeah.
So it's kind of funny that it's all, like, interconnected.
Like, that's the connection.
Yeah, but it's such a cool connection. It's
Yeah.
just like he owns this location where everything bad happens.
Where one of his employees died.
Yeah. The second one goes a lot better in the
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you know what kills me about that in the movie was that how everybody's too polite to know how to react to a badass, like Steve Buscemi. I just love when the guys like, remember how Steve Buscemi got super mad that he pulled into the garage and like 10 seconds later tried to leave, but the guy was like, nope, you gotta pay to leave, and it's like, god damn it. Like, I just love the implication that when he comes back with like he's shot in the mouth, like, open the fucking gate. Like, I just love that was terrifying. But what I thought was really interesting is that it later shows the employee dead. Like, did he still fucking politely refuse?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Really?
That's what happened.
Like, come on. Like, I know you were shot in the side of the mouth, and I know you're holding a gun to me, but dude, you gotta pay like the $2. It's like, are you fucking kidding me with this? Like, God, come on.
You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah.
My neighbor told me this story about how her daughter ordered some furniture. Mm-hmm. This is a real life story.
Okay.
She ordered some furniture, and what ended up happening was the furniture place was supposed to ship it to her mom's place because she lives in the city. She lives in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So, like, she wanted to make sure that somebody was there to receive it. So, instead, they sent it to the billing address, which is the Philly location. And they weren't home at the time.
Yep. Just
their nanny taking care of their newborn baby. And they come and they drop off all this furniture right outside on a small stoop. Because it's Philly. You have small buildings in big cities like that. And the housekeeper doesn't know what to do. She can't lift all this furniture herself.
Yeah.
So she's like, what the hell? So they just told her, like, try to push it out of the way at least, and we'll take care of it when everybody gets home. So then she hears commotion outside after, everything is dropped off. It's dropped off by UPS, and they didn't even, like, get her to sign or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, how do you just drop it off?
Not only did the furniture place get it wrong, but so did UPS. And then, this is the best. Then she hears commotion outside, and she sees the garbage men that are going around that day grabbing the furniture, like the newly shipped furniture,
wow.
and throwing it in the garbage truck. And she's just like, what the hell are you guys doing? This is brand new. Like, you can't do this. Like, and it's like not even close to where, you know, throwing things out would be. They're like, well, you know, it's already on the truck, so we can't get it back out.
What?
And it's just like, of course you can, you assholes.
Yeah, it's your job to get it back out when you, like, get back to base.
Well, no, and then they and she's just like, get it out. Like, and the neighbor was trying to tell them, like, dude, no, stop. Like, this is brand new. This just came here.
Yeah.
And they were like, nope, we got to do it. It's right here. We got to do it. And you know, and they ended up crushing their couch.
Wow.
Like massive incompetence from every angle.
Actually, I'm reminded
Jesus.
of something less. I'm reminded of something less extreme because it was in a movie. But have you guys seen Falling Down with Michael Douglas?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Well, okay. So Pyro, if you don't know, basically the movie's about just everything going wrong for this guy until he snaps, and he just kind of goes on this, like, not murder spree, but like just this sort of violence spree where he's just not taking shit anymore. There's this one part. Because the thing is, he's not just actively out to get people, it's just something just pisses him off. And it's something that would not drive you to violence, but you totally get why it would drive somebody to violence. Because, like, so this guy's had a shitty day already. And he goes into it's a made-up fast food place for the movie. It's a not McDonald's. So he goes into not McDonald's, and he orders, like, some breakfast sandwich or whatever, and the guy's like, oh, sorry, we don't serve the breakfast sandwiches anymore, it's past the time. But he looks at the clock, and it's like 3 minutes past, and he's like, oh, dude, come on, there's no way you sold out in the last, 180 seconds or however long it was. Like, could I please just still buy the breakfast sandwich even though it is very, very slightly overtime? And the guy's just like, nope, sorry, sir, store policy, etc., etc. But the part that this is also kind of like this. I wouldn't call the movie a dark comedy, but it definitely has funny moments. And
It's
this is
a dark comedy.
Yeah, and
I would call it.
But anyway, this is one of the funnier moments. But there is a part that's pretty anger-inducing. Although I think it was supposed to be funny, but it just pissed me off because, like, this guy eventually pulls out this, like, assault weapon he'd gotten from somebody else because somebody just messed with him and he just punched him in the face and just took his bag of weapons. So he just has an assault rifle on him. Or I don't know if it's an assault. It's some kind of freaking super gun. And, like, he's not even holding up the place. He's just like, I want you to sell me a breakfast sandwich. Like, just give me the fucking breakfast sandwich. That's all I want. And, like, all the people who are eating in the restaurant are starting to panic. And he's like, oh, don't worry, guys. You got nothing. I'm not robbing anybody. I just want a fucking breakfast sandwich. That's it. And, like, so, he finally, the manager's, like, now fearing for his life. This is the part that pissed me off. So he's like, can I please have my goddamn breakfast sandwich? And the guy's like, all right. And he just reaches behind him, because there's one just right behind him, just reaches back, grabs it, gives it to him. It was literally right there. The guy's just being obstinate. It's like, son of a bitch. Like, it's just so irritating.
It's like the rules are there, like, not to be constantly followed, but to protect against certain things.
The rules are there so you aren't exploited, not so you could be, like, an asshole. Like, not so you could be Dwight from The Office.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're not a weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
so,
the guy wants to buy a sandwich that you have. Just freaking... Like, the rules are there so you don't have to make a new one, but it's sitting there. Just sell it. So, yeah, that was that.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed our discussion here. I think this was one of our more involved recons, but this was a good one. I really enjoyed this.
For sure.
So, that is our show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesday on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast about our lives in pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold, VyseTheBold, on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel called Lotus Prince. And you could also hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince, all one word.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost on places.
So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on Corrective on Tuesday.
Until next time,
All right.
everyone.
Bye-bye.